Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Why Eagles Why. Dave Bontempo, Bill Gelman, and Pete Amato with you. You know how we do the show. 4 quarters plus an overtime segment. Please hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos. All right, as we break the huddle, Bill, I'll start with you. People have asked us all year, why do you call it Why Eagles Why? There's nothing to complain about. Well, now there is, after the New Orleans Saints debacle and the Eagles last week, losing 20-10 to the non-playoff bound New Orleans Saints. When you looked at that debacle, Bill, what came across your mind?
I feel like the Eagles had approached it like they were taking a test and they thought they knew all the answers and didn't bother studying. And it truly showed in this game because 0 points at all in the first half. Pretty much no first downs. When they got their first first down late in the second quarter was sort of meaningless. And it's like, the Saints are a bad team. And how do you, they went up against Andy Dalton, who was like perfect in the beginning. I think he completed its first 13 passes. I mean, he didn't get a ton of yards, but I mean, all you had to do was win, and then you can rest week 18. There's no excuse for they just literally didn't show up last week.
No, Pete. You see the problem in the first possession. They can't stop the Saints on 4th down in that long opening drive, and then their offense, they had no purpose in the first half. It looked like practice.
Yeah, they just had no game plan coming in. Like this coaching staff, inexperienced, but they're experienced enough to know that they're playing an NFL team. They thought they could just come in and rely on our team being more talented than their team. And that's the worst kind of coach football you'll ever get. I don't care how good your team is. They had no game plan. They had plays set up, and there was no rhyme or reason why the plays were being run. Obviously, they went to come out and pass the ball a lot, which didn't make sense because the Saints, if they do have something good, they have a pretty good secondary. Nothing made sense to me in that thing, and the Eagles defense started stopping them towards the end of the game, more or less because of the talent. They have Andy Dalton. He's not going to keep doing what he was doing in the first half, but yeah, it just showed like I don't know. It kind of smacked me back into reality of I've been giving Sirianni a lot of credit this year, and made me feel like I got to put him down a peg or two because I don't think maybe he's not ready for the playoffs. Maybe he's not. It doesn't have as good as coaching staff as everybody thought, because now they got the microscope on them, and they're losing games to teams they shouldn't lose to. They should destroy. They just looked. They had no rhyme or reason. The game plan. There was no game plan. They thought they can go out there and pick a couple of teams like when you're playing a Madden game, and it came back to bite them.
Well, let's talk about some crazy things, and each of you guys can chime in on this. But Pete, I'll go back to you first with this. What was startling was in the beginning of the second half, after that bad first half, they get a touchdown from Kenneth Gainwell, and then it's called back because it was a phantom holding penalty. That was a bad call. But then after they get it to 13-10, and you say, okay, here they're ready to go, they get upfield, they're over midfield, and Kelsey, with an ineligible receiver downfield penalty, stops that drive. And I'm curious about the mental awareness of the players on the team when they had chances to overcome all the early problems. It just wasn't clicking for them. And these are veteran players making rookie mistakes.
Yeah, and I just think it came down to preparation. I mean, the week before, you're still preparing for a game. You're still running plays, and I just don't think, I don't think they really prepared like they should have. There was no preparation. They probably took it easy in practices. They probably thought that they could just go back and just basically grab a handful of older plays that they've been using all season and kind of mash them together into a game plan for the Saints game. And I think it looks like that's what they try to do. But when you're not preparing or practicing these plays constantly, people get confused. Even guys like Kelsey, Hall of Famer, and it shows you, especially when the offensive line is making penalties, offsides, and guys that normally don't do that. There's some kind of confusion there with what play is being drawn up, what play is being run, and that for me goes 100% blame on the coaches because it just you can just tell they weren't prepared to run the plays that they did.
Bill, when you and I were talking this week, you made a good point on Lane Johnson and how they don't have him. And how do you view that? And then what about Gardner Minshew from 1 week to the next? We saw quite a decline.
Yeah, I mean, Lane Johnson's absence is clearly a big hole to fill for the Eagles. And even if he comes back this season, he needs surgery. So who knows if he's not going to be 100% when he plays, and he doesn't give up any sacks. So, that's a whole side of the line you have to worry about. Gardner Minshew, as much as I would like to blame him, I mean, that interception he threw, that was definitely on him. But I feel like overall, the coaching staff did not have this team prepared, and it showed in every facet of the game. I mean, I think they had 60-something total rushing yards for this game. I mean, granted, Jalen Hurts is out of the game, but you still have Miles Sanders. You still have Kenneth Gainwell. This team cannot just rely on the passing game or the running game. It has to have both going. And so that way the opposing defense, doesn't have to focus on one aspect of the game. And it's just like this offense, I think, is clearly built for Jalen Hurts. And it's Gardner Minshew, even though he had a very good game against the Cowboys, the team just is out of sync right now. It's the wrong time of the season for this to be happening.
All right. In our second quarter, we're going to look ahead because Jalen Hurts has been listed as coming back. So we will take a look at the upcoming Eagles-Giants game and what it all means. Second quarter of Why Eagles Why. Jalen Hurts back for the Eagles. They are 14-point favorites against the Giants. Some people say jump on those points. Pete, when you look at the overall perspective of this game, Hurts, the Eagles coaching staff, what do you see?
With or without, Hurts shouldn't even have to play this game. We should have won with Minshew against the Cowboys. We should have won with Minshew against the Saints. Minshew didn't lose those games for us. Like I said, I think it was big coaching blunders, not having them prepared. But now the Eagles' backs are against the wall, and this turned into a must-win game for a team that was such a high favorite to win this NFC East and this number one seed. Now they need a must-win game in Week 18. Is just not the story Eagles fans wanted to hear. People are still like, "Oh, we're still fine. Jalen Hurts is coming back." I'm not worried about Jalen Hurts. I'm not worried about his injury. I think he's going to be fine. What I'm really worried about is this coaching staff, and more importantly, the Sirianni and Steichen side of the offense and the game plan, the play calling. And I'm just hope that this wasn't a season-long thing of this coaching staff just kind of relying on the talent that we had this year. And they could have very well been out-coached all season, but the Eagles were winning because of the talent that they had. And so nobody looked into it or nobody criticized them because a win is a win. But now that some of the key players are hurt, these coaches have to step up and kind of use the talent that they have, some of the backups and whatnot, and kind of do a better job preparing a game plan, because these games need to be coached more. The games all season didn't really need to be coached. I mean, it sounds stupid, but with a team, an offense, especially an offense like that, with an offensive line like that, you can give them average plays, average playbook, and they can go out there and beat any team in the league. But now you're missing Lane Johnson. Hurts might be a little bit injured. You never know what's going on with some of the secondary guys, but I don't think these coaches are as prepared to be playoff coaches as everybody thinks. I mean, I'm more worried about them moving forward, and their inexperience showed the last couple games, and I just hope that they actually step up and create a good game plan, because this is not going to be an easy game. The Giants are going to come to play whether they put their second stringer in or not. And if they're and the Giants have a really good coach, and Eagles are probably going to be outcoached this game. But I hope that the talent on the team and the coaching staff does enough just to pull this game out, because I'm a little bit worried about this game.
Now, Bill, the Eagles look like they were coasting at times in the last couple of games. To follow up on the idea that Hurts is coming back, do they need more than just a win against the Giants? Is just a win enough, or does this have to be definitive to kind of regain maybe the psyche of this team?
Yeah, I think it has to be definitive in terms of, because you got to have that momentum going into the playoffs. Because if they do win this week, they're going to be off for the first wild card round of the playoffs, and so you got to have some momentum going into the postseason. All this season, we were talking about how they're the favorites in the NFC. They, for a portion of the season, they only had, one loss, and they just, you can't, this is the time where you want to be your hottest, playing your best football. And instead we're talking about, oh no, what happens if the Eagles lose the last 3 games of the regular season? Oh no, we have some serious injuries in several key positions on this team, and it's clearly showing on the field. And as a side note, at this point in the season, if they had opposing teams have so much game film on the Eagles that they're starting to figure out what the Eagles are doing. And this Eagles coaching staff, it hasn't been great at adjusting, and the results are showing in the scores, and especially last week's performance. This team needs help getting motivated for the last game of the regular season. You're playing the New York Giants. You can clinch the NFC East, and you can clinch the number 1 seed. And what happens if they lose? The Cowboys could potentially get both those spots. Who wants to see that, especially the Eagles? So it's like, this is a more of a, okay, you put on this great performance all season. This is your chance. Your playoffs are right around the corner now. Show us what you got, and don't make any blunders. Everyone, they have to be 100% focused on this game, and they have to be the Eagles that have absolutely crushed the competition earlier this season.
Well, we'll get into this more in the next segment, but I'll just tease it out there. Do they want to be playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road next week, or watching the Cowboys have to play the Buccaneers next week in the playoffs? Let's talk a little bit more about that in the next segment. Third quarter of Why Eagles Why. Dave Bontempo, Pete Amato, and Bill Gelman with you. Hey, Pete, it's been a foregone conclusion that the Eagles were going to win the NFC East and get that number 1 seed. Now they really have to fight for it. And let's talk a little bit more about what's at stake for them and what happens if they don't get this.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't get the number 1 seed, you can pretty much cut their chances in half, maybe more than half, about even going to the NFC championship game. Not only will they won't have that first week bye, they won't be able to play in Philly. I mean, every game is going to be an away game. They're going to have to travel for every game. So, I mean, in my opinion, this number 1 seed means a lot to a team right now that is struggling. The coaching staff is clearly being outclassed, outcoached, and a team that's starting to feel their injuries to some big players. So they need that week off. They need that home field advantage. They need to be they need that kind of that weaker road to the NFC. Yeah, if they don't get number 1 seed, they drop all the way down to the number 5 seed. I'm pretty sure. And I believe if that happens, I think this team's just going to beat themselves. And I think that if they don't get this number 1 seed, if they lose the Giants, in my opinion, they're going to be a one and done team in the playoffs, and that's going to be probably one of the biggest failures in Philadelphia sports in a long time. A team that was so high, riding so high, and just falling. Hopefully, it won't get to that, but it's not impossible.
Boy, if they do that to this team in this city now, after all that promise, I mean, you think of that 48-point performance against the Giants. just 3 weeks ago when we could have crowned them as Super Bowl champions then, it seemed like. But now things have changed. And Bill, you've got some interesting observations about the big picture regarding the playoffs and not only why it's important to the Eagles, but how things are stacking up.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reality. Just touching on what Pete said is why would you want to be the number 5 seed or in this playoff picture? You have 65,000 fans or however many fans Lincoln Financial holds, which is standing room only. Do you want to play in front of that crowd, or do you want to possibly play in Tampa Bay, San Francisco? These are not going to be cakewalks, and it's like the Eagles set the table perfectly for the postseason. So did they get up from the dinner table too early? Or because dessert, as in the Super Bowl trophy, is still, a little more than a month away. So that's like, get back on the plan. Like, you don't want to, yes, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have not looked great this year at all. And if they were in a better division, they probably wouldn't even be a playoff team this year. And you don't want to go up against Tom Brady in the playoffs. He was down 2 scores a couple weeks ago in a primetime game. And, just when you thought that they had no chance of winning, Tampa Bay scored, I think it was 2 touchdowns in under 2 minutes. And
yes,
it's like
they got 24th quarter points last week. They've won so many games in the final second. Yeah, you don't want to go down there. Make him go on the road where I think it's a little different for him. And Bill, you talk about the 49ers have been hot since Christian McCaffrey got in. So they're number 2.
Yeah,
you don't want to have to go there and beat them.
And San Francisco has some key injuries right now. Debo's hurt. And you're also going with a backup quarterback. So offensively, they're not the same team, but their defense is stacked. I mean,
their defense and their coaching. I mean, they're
right.
They haven't lost the footing at all. I mean, because it's coaching staff. Yeah, I mean, what I saw this the other day on Twitter. It said like, would this team be undefeated if they had the Doug Peterson coaching staff? And it is something to think about. I mean, it made me think like maybe this coaching staff hasn't really been that great this year, and maybe the talent has been kind of covering them a little bit. And I feel that might be the case, especially after watching these last couple of games. It's just
but the coaching staff is also very young and inexperienced. I mean, this is the reason they're looking so good this year is because the talent that Howie Roseman gave them. I mean, their defensive line is absolutely stacked. When the defensive backfield is healthy, it's probably one of the best in the league. They have the top offensive linemen, and they have the best. Here's a little Gelman's Gold nugget for you. This Eagles have 2 1,000-yard receivers this year. First time in franchise history.
Really?
Wow. That's not easy to do. 2 1,000-yarders. And Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, they played very well off of each other. Here's something to throw out to both of you. Who's going to be the guy that walks up to this team in that locker room and says, let's go. We're blowing this. We better light a fire under ourselves. If it's not going to be Nick Sirianni, I'll throw it out to each of you. Who is it going to be? Pete, who would you say that guy is?
On defense, it'll probably be Brandon Graham, a guy that's been there, done that, came back from an injury, and he's having a career season, and he doesn't want to do a 1 and out. He's seen the highs and the lows of football, and he knows what it takes to be a championship team, and he knows that in the playoffs it's a whole new ball game. It doesn't matter what your record was. So I think he's one of the guys, and maybe on the offense side, Kelsey would probably be the easiest answer. But besides him, maybe a guy like A.J. Brown, who's come here expecting to play on a team that's much better, and then all of a sudden he's maybe less like a leader role and more of just him just being mad at like what are we doing? You know what I mean? So I don't know what Bill has to.
Bill, who lights a fire under this team?
I would pick up the phone, get Seth Joyner on speakerphone, and let him put this team on focus, or I invite Brian Dawkins into the locker room. Veteran presence. The Eagles have a strong bond with their alumni, but I think if it's I would say Jalen Hurts if we're talking about current players. I mean, Jalen Hurts has pretty much carried this team all season, and he might say, everybody just do their part. I got you. He's proven this year that when the Colts game was a perfect example. There was we were watching that game, and throughout the game we were thinking there was no shot the team was going to win. It was like the Saints game, a different version of it. They didn't show up for that game either, but Jalen Hurts showed late in the game that he can put the team on his back and lead them to victory. That's the version of this team we need. I don't care that the Eagles are a 14-point favorite this week against the Giants. Just win the game, lock up your playoff position, and then you wipe the slate clean. You get a week off of rest, and then you go into you get a home playoff game.
And that is another knock against the coaching staff, because Jalen Hurts has the power to go up in the line and change the play, which he did several times in that Colts game. We didn't have that in the Saints game. We just had to rely on these plays that are being called for some of the plays that were being called. It was just like, what is going on? Like, people that weren't even football fans can see, like, why would they just continue to call the same plays over and over again? It was very, very weird, man. I mean, I've seen bad coaching, but in an entire 4-quarter game with no adjustments, it worries me about this coaching staff more than they ever have previously.
Yeah, it looked like they were sleepwalking last week. And also, Bill, not only the Colts game, the Bears game after that, in which he scored the 3 rushing touchdowns. Jalen Hurts is the wild card that they need to go to and, to come out. So we'll take a further look at the Eagles and what's going on around the NFL in the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why, something very special going on this weekend. Bill, how the Eagles faithful has always loved Doug Peterson. Well, Dougie P is going for a championship the same weekend Nick Sirianni is going for one here. I don't recall that ever happening in the past with a former Eagles coach and a current Eagles coach going for a division title on the same weekend. And Doug Peterson's team, Jacksonville, hosting the Tennessee Titans on Saturday night.
Yeah, and it's a great story, Dougie P. I mean, he took over a very young Jacksonville team with Trevor Lawrence, being their quarterback, franchise quarterback, and all the pieces are coming together down there. And they came along late in the season. They got off to a little bit of slow start, but they showed some they played the Eagles in Philadelphia earlier this year. I mean, it wasn't a pretty performance by Jacksonville, but young teams need time to develop. And we've seen it in Philadelphia, and it's just like a feel-good story. Like, Jacksonville's that underdog. Tennessee, you have Derrick Henry. You think that's easily their division to win, and they're having quarterback issues down there. I think the fact that Tennessee is still even in this conversation is a little surprising. What's sad is if Jacksonville loses this game, that division winner would have a losing record going into the playoffs. Yes. So you have wild card teams with better records, and that's what drives me bonkers, the way that this playoffs is set up. Because I hate to say it, but you have the Cowboys who are in the 5th seed, but they have a much better record than the Buccaneers. So why why did they have to play on the road?
Yeah.
Last time I said something good about the Cowboys on this show.
Yeah, you win a division, and then there have been 2 7-win teams that won a playoff game because they were at home. Now, just the particulars is that if the game ends up at a tie, Jacksonville wins. They're playing at home. They're a 6.5-point favorite. Joshua Dobbs, who played last week against the Cowboys, will be the starter. Derrick Henry is supposed to be back. Jacksonville with all those weapons, and Jacksonville beat Tennessee a couple weeks ago. That's when we started to get the idea that they could possibly catch up. And Derrick Henry's been putting the ball on the turf. So Tennessee, they're coming off the rails. But that game is Saturday night, and that leads into one thing. And then, Pete, we've got Nick Sirianni the next day trying to wrap it up for the Eagles. And it's going to be a feel-good story in Philadelphia that two coaches could win a division the same weekend.
Yeah, especially a coach as beloved as Doug Peterson. I think we all know he got a bad rep, not from the local media, but from the national media when he got the job because nobody really knew much about him. We knew him because he was a quarterback here. And I think he was a quarterback's coach, I think years ago under Andy Reid. So we kind of Philly fans kind of known him for a little bit, and he was the kind of guy that where you just a regular guy's guy. And I think the Philadelphia blue collar town, I think we all kind of started liking him. And then of course him bringing the first Super Bowl to Philadelphia will forever make him beloved here. So anytime he kind of I think Philadelphia is always going to root for him. And it's easy to root for a guy like that. He's likable and he's good. He's a good coach. Like Bill said, he took a young team, a young and upcoming team that wasn't supposed to be the playoff team this year. I mean, yes, they were built for the future, but not this year. Nobody saw that. But he knew he had a good quarterback. He knew he had a good team. He got the team to buy in, and that Jags team looks 100% better than it did last year. So good for him. I'm rooting for him. And Nick Sirianni, it's kind of about the same situation here because both these guys are going to go in this week being expected to win these games. The Eagles more than the Jags because the Eagles are playing a Giants team that already clinched. They'll probably play their backups most games. The Jags do play a Titans team that will probably play to win, whether they have a backup or not in there. They're going to try to win. It's not really going to be as big of a point spread. So the Eagles, Sirianni should have an easier game. We'll see what happens. And another thing is that people kind of were talking about right before Jalen Hurts' injury is the MVP race. I think everybody, I mean, the odds right when he got injured and they said he was doubtful to play against the Cowboys, the odds switched and Mahomes shot right to the top. Whether or not those two games were going to hurt his MVP chances was up to Mahomes, and Mahomes has continued to play lights out. So I think Mahomes is kind of ran away with it. I thought he deserved to win it even before Jalen Hurts got hurt. I originally said if Jalen Hurts ends the season strong, number one seed, then Jalen Hurts will get it. But he missed two games that Mahomes has continued to dominate with a team that, I mean, there's not as much talent around Mahomes as Hurts has. And you can't take anything away from Mahomes. I feel like it's really hard for Mahomes not to win this MVP the way he's played this season. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and he lost his top wide receiver. I mean, Tyreek Hill went to Miami. So
yeah, Jalen Hurts is a great story, feel-good story, but it doesn't always have to be a feel-good story. Mahomes is the MVP of the entire football league right now.
And, we talked about some of this last year on the show because, all right, Juju Smith-Schuster is now a viable guy. And so is Kadarius Toney. Remember how excited the Giants were? He was their number one pick. And now he's a backup at Kansas City, but deep on the depth chart, he's showing up now and making good plays for them. So Mahomes has been a magician. And it's Saturday. We have a lot to look at. Mahomes, the magician, and Jacksonville. Think about this. They were down double digits against the Raiders. They came back to win. They were trailing the Ravens late. They came back to win. They were trailing Dallas by 17 points late in the third quarter, and they came back to win. So I'm really excited about Saturday and then about Sunday. We'll have our parting shots and thoughts on overtime. Overtime section of Why Eagles Why. Pete, do you take 14 and the New York Giants?
Obviously, I want the Eagles to win, but I like money. So, 14 points is a no-brainer for me. I don't think it's going to – if the Eagles win this game, I do not think it's going to be a blowout. Yes, they're going against the second string, but the Giants have a good coach, and anything can happen in a division game. So, if I'm going to bet this game, which I haven't decided yet, I would 100% take the Giants with the 14 points. There's no way, in my mind, which can be a jumbled mess at times, the Eagles are going to beat the New York Giants by more than 14 points after the 2 weeks I just saw. Given Jalen Hurts is playing this week, but so 14 points is a lot in the NFL.
Bill, do you even care about the point spread this week?
No, I don't even care about the point spread. I don't care if it's 21 points, 7 points. I don't even want to think about teasing the line, because the reality is the Eagles had 3 opportunities. All they had to do was win one of their last 3 games and everything's locked up. So now you're in essentially the sudden death round. And then you have to win this week, or you have to, I believe, hope for a Cowboys loss, or I don't know how it plays out if the Eagles and Cowboys both lose. So if the Eagles just take care of business, don't think about anything else. I don't care if they win by a field goal as the final minutes are ticking off the clock. Just get it done. And this was supposed to be a week where the starters were going to rest. And now you got to play them at least a half. And if it's a blowout, you can start pulling those guys. But just win the game.
If the Eagles and Cowboys both lose, the Eagles will win the division, but they probably wouldn't get that number 1 seed. And that would probably go to San Francisco if the 49ers come up with a win in their last game. But we can take care of all those scenarios and throw them out the window with one thing, an Eagles victory. And if they don't get it, next week people are going to be calling us up and say, why? Eagles, why? Well, thanks for joining us. For Bill Gelman and for Pete Amato, this is Dave Bontempo saying so long. Please hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos, and we'll see you next week.